Hey guys, welcome to my little corner of the world. Here I am just sipping tea casually at 1 a.m. I'm ready to chat about some of the films I watched in the past year. My name is Crystal. I am a recent college graduate who's not a film major, so I'm not a filmmaker, I'm not a film critic. I'm merely a very enthusiastic film lover since I was a little kid. I love reading like film reviews whenever I saw something that's thought-provoking or I really enjoyed, partially because I'm just interested in seeing different opinions. Sometimes they're polarizing and it's just fascinating to see how people can walk out of the same movie having totally different perspectives. I still fantasize about one day making it in Hollywood, but until that day comes, I'm very happy just sitting here and chatting about my favorite movies and get people excited as I am. Without further ado, let's dive right in. So the first movie I want to recommend is The Trial of the Chicago 7. It is on Netflix. It is a historical film documenting this notorious trial in 1969. And the trial was on this violent standoff between the Chicago police force and the protesters at the Democratic National Convention. Back in late 1960s, it was like a time of chaos in the US. The country was deep in war with Vietnam. Dr. Martin Luther King was just shot, so there was this surge of anti-war and anti-racism protest going on, which is why a lot of protesters congregated at that convention. That entire historical background kind of have a hint of 2020 to it if you think about it. I just love that even as a foreigner who is really lack of knowledge on American history, I can still follow the fast-paced storytelling of the movie. A+ acting for all the cast. I signed up for this film because I saw Eddie Redmayne and Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the trailer and I'm like, I'm sold. But honestly, every single one of them, the acting was just supreme, and there was just like immaculate portrayal of each character. I still remember how infuriated I was every time the judge appeared, and the judge is like the epitome of a white supremacist, and every time he spoke up in such a blatantly racist manner, I just want to punch the screen.
You're the first to suggest that I have discriminated against a black man.
Then let the record show that I'm the second.
It was a very emotional watch, and it's definitely a social commentary, educational for me as someone who's a foreigner residing in the US and want to know more about the US history, so definitely would recommend this one. The next movie is Jojo Rabbit. It tells the story of the dark time of Nazi Germany through the eyes of a little boy named Jojo. So Jojo grew up in the Nazi propaganda, right? So he has his imaginary friend, Adolf Hitler, of course. He grew up with the worldview that the Jews are monsters who smelled like Brussels sprout. So his worldview was a little shaken up when he discovered that his mother was hiding a little Jewish girl in their attics. And as the girl and Jojo get to know each other, he's starting to like see the world in a different way. It was a surprisingly feel-good watch, and it has an amazing sense of humor to it. At first I was very skeptical because I was like, this is a film about Nazi Germany. Like, how can you tell such a serious story with humor? Wouldn't that be politically insensitive? But this movie does such a marvelous job walking that fine line and portraying the absurdity of Nazi doctrine and propaganda. It was very touching and like emotional to watch. The next one, we have Frances Ha. It follows the story of Frances, who moved from LA to New York, trying to make it as a dancer, but her career is just not going great.
What do you do?
It's kind of hard to explain.
Because what you do is complicated?
Because I don't really do it.
Her life is not going anywhere, and she has friends who's like more accomplished than her, but she is just so wonderfully weird and unapologetically different from everyone else. And I think that's something that's so not relatable, but also deeply relatable in the city like New York when everyone's hustling and they have their glamorous job, and sometimes you just feel out of place, or you're like,
am I pursuing the right thing? Am I good enough?
but sometimes you just need to be more like Frances, you know? If you're a fan of Greta Gerwig, go watch it. The next film, we have The Edge of 17. So I am a sucker for American coming-of-age film about high schoolers ever since I watched High School Musical when I was 11. There's no surprise that I love coming-of-age film, and The Edge of 17 is something that I watched this year and really resonated to. It follows the story of this girl named Nadine. She lost her father, who she was very close with. Her mother's a little bit cuckoo, and she preferred the poster child that is her brother, who was also like a star student, athlete in school, super good looking. So Nadine in high school feels a little bit invisible, and all she feels like she has is her best friend and her like dark, witty humor that she can only share with her English teacher. As the story goes on, We just follow Nadine through all her ups and downs, the loneliness, the growing pains, until she finally figures out that as long as she opens her heart, she was never alone. So next we have Sophies Love. This one is a very new one. It actually came out last Christmas. It is a melodrama of a summer romance in the 60s in Harlem, New York, following a guy named Robert who is a saxophonist. Robert is a musician in a jazz band, and Sylvie, who is the daughter of a record shop owner, she always aspired to start her own career in the TV industry one day.
Why should I hire you? Because I didn't know that a Negro woman television producer even existed. And all my life, that is all I've ever wanted to be.
The story is very moving, not in an epic romance or any dramatic way, and that's what I like so much about it. It was just two ordinary people who met, and there was this unexplainable chemistry between them, and then they just fell in love. I did discover this film because of rege-jean page. If you watch Bridgerton, you know what's up, but oh my god. But one thing I do want to mention that's actually relevant is that I read in one of his interviews, he said that he wanted to dedicate his work to telling a story that portrays Black joy in the historical context. So yeah, it's good to see more works like Sophies Love going on the screen, and they're just so beautifully made, and I genuinely enjoy the storytelling. Next up, we have an animated film called My Life as a Zucchini. Ma vie de crochet is the French name of it. Did I butcher it? Let me know. So this is the first stop motion claymation film that I've seen. And it's pretty cool. I really liked it. It tells a story of a little boy named Zucchini who lost his mother, and he was sent to an orphanage where he met a lot of little children who all carry their own trauma, but they were just innocent little kids who are trying to lift each other up and carry each other through. So it's a very heartbreaking and heartwarming story, and just a very healing watch. I highly recommend it. Next up, we have an even older film, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. This movie has been on my watch list for years, and I'm glad I finally watched it. This is what Ashley, aka Best Dressed, called the inception of rom-com, and she is not wrong. That was the most accurate description of this film. This movie tells a story about Joel and Clementine. After they broke up, Joel found out that Clementine uses memory erasure service so that she can forget all about Joel and their past relationship, and Joel was heartbroken, decided to do the same thing to erase Clementine from his memory. But as the procedure was going on, Joel realized that he doesn't really want to forget about her, so he's basically fighting with his subconsciousness, trying to collect pieces and hints of Clementine and trying to bring her back, essentially. So it's very trippy, I'm not gonna lie. I think that's just the general vibe of Charlie Kaufman. There's just a fine line between genius and madness, and I feel like this film falls under the genius side, whereas the new one that came out, I'm thinking of ending things, that one is pure madness. I do not understand what I was watching for 2 hours straight, and I walked out, I'm like, what the heck did I just watch? I want my 2 hours back. I love how this movie is very surreal and sci-fi, but it's also so profound because it kind of make you see your past relationship or your memory of people in your past in a different light. The breakups might be painful, there might be people who hurt you, but all these experiences, happy or painful, it makes you who you are. And it also kind of have this fatalism to it, in a way that if you fell in love with each other one time, you're destined to fall in love again, which is not a concept that I buy, but is very moving in a story setting. I think the movie is very skillful at leading you through the timeline or the chronology of it. Throughout the movie, Clementine has different hair color, and that turns out to be a key indicator of which time period you are in terms of their entire relationship, because throughout the storytelling, it jumps back and forth in time. And it can be a little bit confusing to watch at first, but it was just mind-blowing how you can portray time in such a subtle but effective way. It's almost like playing with your subconsciousness, so without telling you where you exactly are in the timeline, but you can somehow tell from a character's hair. Isn't that cool? I feel like I did a bad job describing this, but go watch the movie, you won't regret it. If you like Inception, if you like a good rom-com, this is for you. Number 3, we have not a movie, but a musical, and you already know what it is. It is Hamilton. It was just a pure historical epic about the founding of the US through the lens of Alexander Hamilton. It's a mind-blowing piece.
It makes you laugh, it makes you cry.
Lin-Manuel Miranda is a genius. There were barely any talking in this musical. It was all composed. How? The whole production is sung and rapped through, and at one point Eliza, which is Hamilton's wife, started beatboxing for her son, and like I lost it. It was amazing. The casting is something that's groundbreaking too, when you're telling a story of founding fathers and America during that time, but the cast is racially diverse. I think that's just a very progressive move in the theater sphere. My favorite song from that is Eliza's theme song, Helpless. I was playing that on repeat for weeks. Helpless, I'm so into you. All right, number 2, we have Sorry to Bother You. Yes, another film starring Tessa Thompson. Her acting is A+, and she's honestly so gorgeous, so Sorry to Bother You is a very dark, dystopian, political satire on American society, the race, the class, capitalism, everything. Shit got real crazy at the end. Like, I won't spoil it, but it was a little bit too much. The story follows a young broke man, Cassius Green, who works in a telemarketing company. Using his white voice, he was able to make sales and climb that social ladder quickly.
You want to make some money here? Use your white voice.
My white voice?
I'm not talking about Will Smith's wife, like this young blood.
Hey, Mr. Kramer, this is Langston from Regal View.
But as his career takes off, he uncovers more and more disturbing truth about the company and the deals they make, and he was caught in a moral dilemma. On one side, it's his money, status, and doing a job he's good at, and on the other end is his conscience and the trust of his friends and his loved ones. One thing that's worth noticing is the color palette of this whole show. It was so like vibrant and saturated and a little bit retro. Tessa's character's earrings, my favorite detail ever, because she was this very bold, progressive artist. She's the most badass in the movie. The whole color just gives out a very like surreal vibe. All right, now we have the favorite movie of the year, and it is Little Women. As you can see, there's some recurring guests in this movie review. First is Tessa Thompson, and the second one is Greta Gerwig. Greta Gerwig is the director and the screenwriter of this film, and she is just everything I aspire to be. It is just so inspirational to see female artists like her in the film industry and keep putting out good works like such. The combo of her and Saoirse Ronan, like, it just can't go wrong. From Lady Bird to this one, like, they never disappoint. Ouch. Yeah, everyone knows the story of Little Women, so I'll just skip ahead and talk about why this movie is my favorite. First, let's talk about the aesthetic. When they're telling the story of their golden childhood and they're just portraying this warm household full of women, this like glorious female utopia, as Greta put it. Later in time, the color theme will be cooler toned. As we mentioned before, in like Eternal Sunshine, they use like Clementine's hair. In this movie, I think it's equally clever to use the color tone as an indicator. It kind of enables a freer storytelling when you can use that to differentiate different periods of your story, so you can jump back and forth. So it really keeps things interesting. And the dialogue were amazing. It portrays the ambience so well. It has those like very chaotic dialogue going on in the household when like all the girls are talking and there's just a choreographed chaos going on. But there are also monologues that portray each character's, their beliefs and their version of feminism.
And if I had my own money, which I don't, that money would belong to my husband the moment we got married. And if we had children, they would be his, not mine. They would be his property. So don't sit there and tell me that marriage isn't an economic proposition, because it is. It may not be for you, but it most certainly is for me.
All the female characters in this story exude their strength and their strong sense of identity in different but equally empowering ways, which is so powerful to watch.
Women, they have minds and they have souls as well as just hearts, and they've got ambition and they've got talent as well as just beauty. And I'm so sick of people saying that love is just all a woman is fit for. I'm so sick of it.
that is a wrap on all the movies that I want to cover in this video. I honestly don't feel like my language ability is good enough to do all these movies justice, but this is the best I could do. If you're interested in seeing more content like this, definitely give me a thumbs up and tell me what you think about the movie that I mentioned, or you know, just general feedback for me. I would really appreciate it and hope you're feeling a little bit inspired. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!